Hi, I'm Aline Basmadjian, your host, and you're listening to Episode 1, The Never-Ending War on the podcast series, Hye Em Yes. You might already be asking yourself, what in the world does Hye Em Yes mean? Well, let's dive in and see what the never-ending war against Armenia is all about. Well, let me actually introduce myself. My name is Aline Basmadjian. You might be thinking, that's a weird name. Well, yes, it's unique. It's an Armenian name. Growing up, I have had my first and last name mispronounced many times, which is a continuous struggle, but also a great opportunity to inform people about my Armenian culture. Just a little fun fact, most Armenian last names end in IAN or YAN, just like how my last name is Basmadjian. This is super cool because it is able to connect other Armenians together. But also, there's a downside to it, which I'll later explain. Well, moving on. I am 3/4 Armenian, as I grew up in an Armenian home in Texas. I had an interesting lifestyle, as I grew up going to an Armenian Orthodox church, went to Saturday Armenian school for 10 plus years, and always ate Middle Eastern food at home. Growing up, I was so confused why I wasn't like the other kids, and why my mom didn't pack me a normal lunch, and why my parents were so passionate about me learning the Armenian culture and history. I had been growing up learning about the history of Armenia, eating delicious food, and dancing traditional Armenian folk dance at our yearly church festival. One day in high school, it all changed. I realized the true meaning behind Hye Em Yes, which means I am Armenian. I want you to take a second and think. Have you ever flown out of the country or haven't been immersed in a new culture and lifestyle? Have you ever seen a beautiful field of bright green grass blowing in the air as traditional cultural music plays in the background of the wind hissing? Imagine a land with old churches filling the fields and having unique symbolism and meaning to people all across the world. The culture, the people, and the land. This is Armenia. Armenia is a small country over in Eastern Europe, next to Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. A little background on Armenia. Armenia was the first Christian nation back in 301 AD, and is home to Mount Ararat, which can be found in the Bible. This land is filled with vast and beautiful, deep-rooted history and culture. If you have ever seen Armenia on a map, you might realize it has a very small population, and it is a very small country land-wise. Well, before 1915, the land of Armenia used to be a lot bigger. But once 1915 happened, the never-ending war erupted. This wasn't just some old war. This was a genocide. Back in 1915, Turkey, also known as the Ottoman Empire, committed genocide on the Armenian people, killing about 1.5 million Armenians, according to a recent article on the New York Times. This was no recognizable genocide. This was a genocide that created orphans and made people walk across deserts just to have to relocate to new homes. This genocide happened because the Ottoman Empire wanted to take over Armenia's land. They didn't want them to be a Christian nation. They wanted to convert them to their religion. Even now, this genocide is still in remembrance every year by the Armenian people. My great-grandma was in the Armenian genocide. She was a baby, but she did have to flee her home with her mom and her dad. They had to go all across the country and move from their home in Armenia. They ended up in Syria, and then they ended up in Lebanon, where they had my grandma. My grandma lived in Lebanon most of her life, and my other grandparents on my dad's side lived in Lebanon and Syria most of their lives because of the relocation of the Armenian genocide. Eventually, my grandparents came to America, and that's where my mom and dad were born. From this, a diaspora occurred. A diaspora where many Armenians moved all across the world to different places because of this relocation from the Armenian genocide. Well, you might be wondering, how in the world have I never heard about this? Or why haven't we learned this in history class? Well, that's a great question. According to ANCA, the Armenian National Committee of America, an NPR, just recently, the Senate passed the recognition of the Armenian genocide in Washington, D.C. That's back in 2019. So it took from 1915 all the way until 2019 for the United States to recognize the Armenian genocide. Well, you might be wondering, why should I even care about this anymore? Well, another war occurred in Armenia in 2020, and there's ways you can help.
Artsakh is an historical Armenian land located in the southeast of.
This is my friend and previous resident, Tamara Kocherian. She is an international student from Armenia and is a sophomore here at the University of Oklahoma.
Artsakh has always been a part of Armenia. In 1923, during the Soviet Union, the governors Stalin and Lenin decided to annex Artsakh to Azerbaijan because they wanted to please Turkey, and as we know, Turkey and Azerbaijan are brother nations.
Right now, there's a conflict happening in Armenia, where Azerbaijan, alongside Turkey, are trying to take over Armenia's land, Artsakh.
1988, when it was almost collapsing, the Armenians of Artsakh, and they were more than 90% of the population, they demanded to be part of Armenia and not to be in Azerbaijan. However, of course, the authorities did not listen to them, and a war started. This war lasted until 1994. And Armenians won the war, and Artsakh stayed an autonomous state. It was not part of Azerbaijan, even though it is internationally recognized Azerbaijan territory.
With all of this background history, we now see that in 2020, there is a new war and conflict over this land. Before, it was just little bickering, but now it was a full-out war that lasted about a month and affected Armenians all across the world. I sat down with Tamara and asked her if she had any stories to share and how she felt about this new conflict that was happening in Armenia.
So I woke up on Sunday morning, the 27th, and I read the news, and it was, like Azer started attacking Artsakh and all that, and I was like, this happens like very often. So I didn't think it was something serious, but then during the day, they published the names of people who died, and I was just very confused of what was happening. So it was bad news the whole time, and again, I went to see my Armenian friends, and I remember sitting there at their apartment and just they were reading the names of the people who died on that day, and I couldn't focus because I thought that if I listen to them I might recognize some of the names. And I saw a couple of posts from my friends, and they messaged me telling me that my friend died, and I went back, I looked at the names, and I saw his name, and my friend was an ambulance driver, and he was going to like bring wounded soldiers when his ambulance car was bombed and he died.
As I continued talking with her, she shared her stories about how she lost many other friends during this war over Artsakh. She was very saddened, and there were just a lot of emotions happening during this time. This war is important to realize and know because a lot of young people got drafted to be and fight in this war. A lot of young kids like my age, 20, 19, 18, and Tamara also shared with me a story about how one of her friends was wounded and sent to the hospital. He had a lot of surgeries and eventually recovered, but she was just so relieved that he was home and safe and in a hospital getting the need and care that he had to get. She was so glad that he wasn't out fighting anymore, and I saw so many posts over this time about how mothers and sisters and daughters were all so happy to see their loved ones home. This topic and conflict happening in Armenia is important to everyone, even if you're not Armenian or living in the US. This is important because we need to spread awareness. We need to spread awareness through social media and word of mouth. By letting others know about what's happening in Armenia and to the Armenian people by Turkey and Azerbaijan, it'll help prevent other genocides and other conflicts happening to the Armenian people in other European countries. You might not know any Armenians or realize why they're important to society, but Armenians have invented a lot of things, like the ATM and the hairdryer, including the COVID-19 vaccine. Moderna is an Armenian-owned company that has come up with the COVID-19 vaccine. Recently, according to CBS News, the Trump administration has bought 10 million doses of Moderna's COVID vaccine so far. This conflict is also important because Turkey tried to wipe out an entire Christian nation out of Europe. Also, the US is sending weapons and money to Turkey and Azerbaijan, these countries that are the aggressors. Another issue is that Turkey is still in NATO. NATO is supposed to be a peace organization, but as seen, Turkey is not a peaceful nation, and they are obviously not going to back down anytime soon on trying to get rid of Armenia. Throughout this conflict, Azerbaijan and Turkey have been killing civilians and have been using illegal chemical weapons to do so. The pictures have been horrendous seeing on social media and in the news. Something Armenians want to happen is for others to take action, sign petitions, donate money, and spread the news. We want this conflict to be on the news. According to NBC Los Angeles, there was a big demonstration of Armenians that blocked the freeway in LA. This helped get this conflict and this issue on the news. There were so many Armenians there that cars could not move one bit. I actually knew some people that were there at the protests, friends from my church camp over the summer, and other Armenians I knew across the country.
This is not the first time that the governors of Turkey saying we're going to finish what our grandfathers started, and what their grandfathers started was the Armenian genocide.
I hope you have some newfound knowledge on this issue and conflict that is happening in Armenia. I hope you understand what we Armenians are going through right now and how you can help through signing petitions, going to demonstrations, and buying from local Armenian companies. Spreading awareness is so important, and I hope that you realize the importance that it has on you specifically and how it is affecting the world in general.